As you recall in the Bible, Ahab was a very insolent man. He wanted to do what he wanted to do. He was very stubborn, very rebellious. And he was also passive to the point where he allowed his wife, Jezebel, to take control. She dominated over him. She usurped his authority, meaning she took the authority that was meant for him as king, and he manipulated her. He was a very childish-like man. He had childish behavior. When he did not get what he wanted, it's like he would sulk and throw tantrums. If you remember, he wanted this vineyard that belonged to the servant Naboth, and it was his vineyard, and it was passed down to him. He inherited this vineyard. And so, as you know, Ahab wanted to buy this. He wanted to take this vineyard from him. And so Naboth refused to sell it to him because he had inherited this vineyard. And so Ahab, because he could not get his way, he was a childish man. He didn't want to hear no. He was used to getting his way. He wanted his way. So he began to pout and sulk. And so he sulked because he knew that his wife, Jezebel, would give him his way. She would do whatever it is to appease him. And so this is how a lot of these Ahab men are. They want to be appeased, and they'll allow their women to take forth the forefront and stand up and do what it is that they themselves want to do, but they're not able to do because they have somehow been emasculated. Okay, they have allowed the women in their lives to take control of them. They have, they have delegated their position and power because they themselves don't want to do it out of either being childish, like being lazy, being apathetic, or like I said, just not wanting to take responsibility. And so he was sulking one day. He came back when he could not buy this vineyard, and Jezebel asked him what was wrong. And so when he told her, she says, oh, who does he think he is? She stirred him up, instigated things, fueled up everything, said, well, she ordered him basically and said, well, we're going to get this vineyard. And she took his stamp and everything, and she written out this letter. And long story, she made all of them. She ended up having Naboth killed. Okay, she had them kill Naboth. She lied on him and had him kill Naboth. But this was the fault of Ahab, because he wanted what Naboth had. He desired something. He wanted to have something that belonged to another man. And so, as you know, God sent his prophet Elijah, and he had anointed Jehu as king, and he had prophesied to Jehu because he was going to destroy Ahab, because Ahab was a very rebellious. Again, he did not follow the orders of God. He did not submit to God's authority. And that's the reason, one of the reasons why Ahab followed his own heart. And as we talked about it, rebellion, again, when you're doing rebellion, and this can cause, God does not like disobedience and rebellion. And so he had told Elijah to anoint Jehu as king. And he anointed Jehu as king. And when he went to him and he told him, he gave him the prophecy, what the Lord told him. And he said unto him, hey, and thou shalt smite the house of Ahab thy master, that I may avenge the blood of my servants the prophets and the blood of all the servants of the Lord at the hand of Jezebel. So Jezebel was destroying all of the prophets, destroying all of God's servants, and then on top of that, she had already destroyed the servant Naboth because she had stolen his vineyard. After she had him murdered, an innocent man, they ended up giving the vineyard to Ahab. So he took his vineyard. And so as a judgment for this, God had Ahab's entire household slain. He had 70 sons, and he ended up murdering all of his sons. He had his sons murdered. And as it says here, I'm reading from 2 Kings 10:11, it says, so Jehu slew all that remained of the house of Ahab in Jezreel, and all his great men and his kinsfolk and his priests, until he left him none remaining. So the entire house of Ahab was destroyed because Ahab was a rebellious person. And the moral of the story is because, see, there are modern day Ahabs right now. And there are men out here who, they know what it is that God wants them to do. They have refused to take on this role because they are either cowardly, they're rebellious and stubborn, they're filled with their pride, they're egotistical. A lot of them are, again, acting in childlike behavior. They don't want to step up and take ownership and responsibility. And a lot of these men, they're controlled by the women in their lives, their mothers, their grandparents, the women in their lives, their aunts, or it could be women, wives, spouses, or people they're in relationships with. And these women hold the role of a Jezebel because they're taking the dominance and authority. And as you talk about the divine order, if you know the divine order, the men are supposed to be the head of the household. And the divine order usually falls into place when a man is submitting unto God. And then he can then take hold and leadership over his household. He has the authority. But when a man forsakes that role and he is not in submission to God, then everything is out of order, where the woman can now dominate and run the relationship. And so the man is sitting here basically frustrated. He wants and desires things, but his I guess the woman is controlling him and not allowing him to do it. And so it's like they're fueled with this resentment and bitterness. And on top of that, they sit here, it's like a child who's pouting because they can't have their way. They're a child who's sulking, who's mad at their parents, and they're filled with all these insecurities and these inner wounds and pains and hurts. And so not only that, the Lord was showing me how a lot of these men, they were supposed to do what God told them to do. Okay, they did not do what God told them to do. For instance, they were supposed to take on certain roles, certain positions. God appointed them to do things. He anointed them for a certain reason, for a certain thing to do. And these men know it, and they're not taking on that role. And so they're being dominated. Now, a lot of them are stuck in relationships that they did not want to be in. They're sitting in relationships with women who they did not want to be with, women they were not supposed to be with, and they know they're not supposed to be with those women. But again, since they are not being in submission to God and they're sitting here letting the woman dominate them, they're stuck in these relationships. On top of that, these men, they end up despising the mate that they're with. But then they go on, I talked about this before, they go and they find another woman who it is that they desire certain characteristics and traits about that person, or maybe they were supposed to even be in a relationship with that person, but they chose for some reason not to forsake a relationship with that person because they did not meet the certain standards that would appease, the women in their lives or their parents or their mother or whoever else it is in society. And they were afraid, once again, because these people, these type of men who have this Ahab spirit, they are ones who seek to appease men. They're very controlled and dominated. They're seeking the approval of their mothers. They're seeking the approval of those who are around them instead of seeking the approval of God. And they're afraid to step out and do what it is that God told them to do. So what they decide to do is, a lot of them have stolen. As you remember what Ahab done in the Bible, he stole the vineyard through Jezebel. He wanted that vineyard and he knew he could not have it. It was not his. Legally, he did not have access to it. He did not have rights to that vineyard. So he went and got, in agreement with Jezebel and sought her assistance in getting this for him. And she had this man murdered. She had the servant murdered so Ahab could take what he wanted. So what's happening with God, show me what these men are doing, these men with these Ahab spirits. A lot of them are taking from the women of God, God's women. If you know in the Bible, it says he who finds a wife finds a good thing. And they're women who have certain traits, virtuous women, okay? They have certain traits in the Bible, certain traits about them, certain characteristics, okay? They might be very loving. They might be, they might be walking in submission unto God, meaning they're not out here living a life where they're worldly, they're of the world, they're kind to their mate, they're submissive, they're not dominating. See, if a man, Ahab, is in a relationship with a Jezebel woman who is dominating him, who is telling him what to do, treating him bad, he doesn't like this, but he is afraid to leave the relationship. He's cowardly. He does not want to step out of that role, or he has soul ties formed with this woman because he was in sin, and so he cannot step away from it. But he might see this other woman that he desires, okay? The type of woman that he was supposed to have been with had he not erred and followed God's obedience and was submission unto God. But he, for some whatever reason, he felt that, this woman would be a better mate for him because it fits up the qualities that, his parents or those around him might want, because this person might be educated, or this person might have this or have this. They're looking at things on the physical appearance, on the outside, financially. This person looks great on paper. They meet in all these check marks, but they don't have the qualities that God says that a virtuous woman's supposed to have. So what these men have decided to do, and I talked about this before, but we're getting up to the point in a minute, because what these men have decided to do is to take traits and qualities that God has inside this woman, these women, okay? These are virtuous women. They might be submissive. They might be very, very loving, very nurturing, very caring, good parents, good role models. They might respect their bodies. They might honor themselves. They might honor God. They have a loving relationship with God. They care and nurture their men. They're submissive to the men. Or they might have a certain physical qualities, physical characteristics and traits about them, things that it's completely opposite of what the woman that they're with has. And so since these men do not want to submit to God, they don't want to, they want to stay in these relationships. They're bound, they're controlled. What they have done was they coveting these things with this woman. And so they have decided to seek out the assistance of, and the gifts of Jezebel, who's now divinity. If you know Jezebel in the Bible was a woman who her father was Baal. So she served many idols. She was adept at divination and witchcraft. And so this is what these type of men pick. They pick women who are Jezebels, and Jezebel usually correlates with those. When you have a Jezebel spirit inside you, you're going to be dealing with witchcraft. You're going to be dealing with sorcery. You're going to be doing soothsaying and divination. These women will portray the role that they have a godly personality and persona, but they're worshiping other idols. They're doing witchcraft. They're doing tarot reading. They're doing sorcery. They're dabbling in magic. And this is nothing. If you look in the Bible, these are all the things that God says an abomination. They do not have God's true spirit. They portray a form of godliness. But these women, if you look at their fruit, because God says to judge them by their fruit, they're their disposition is very, very negative, very nasty. They might gossip. They might disrespect their men. They might run the household. They're very unloving and harsh. They manipulate. They mistreat their men. They don't want to submit to them. And when they're married, they might withhold sex and use sex as a means to manipulate the person, to get with the control the spouse or the mate that they're with. And so these men are unhappy and they're miserable. They don't know how to take authority over the relationship. They don't know how to pray. They don't know how to submit to God. They don't want to, because and at the same time, they want Jezebel to treat them like a child, because they're missing out, because they still have these inner childhood wounds, because they did not have a good relationship with their mother or their grandparents. And they feel like they're still harboring resentment of how their mothers were. And so this is why they're attracted to this type of woman, because it reminds them of the mother that they had. If they had a cold relationship with their mother and their mother was very unloving, so now they're getting a relationship with a woman who's treating them the same way. It's very unloving and cold and cruel and bitter to them. But instead of separating from that, they continue to hold on to this, and they continue to hold on and join the soul tie. So they get together with Jezebel, and Jezebel's covenanting this other woman because they see that their mate desires this other woman, because they like the qualities about her disposition and her characteristics and everything. She's beautiful from the inside and out. As you know, when a person is beautiful on the inside, it radiates onto the outside as well. So now they know that their mate is lusting after that person, wants and desires that person, but they're stuck with this mate here. And so they decide to take, just like Jezebel and Jehu in the Bible got together and took from Naboth. They took his vineyard. They take gifts and characteristics and traits out of the woman of God so that they can take it. This man has gotten together, this Ahab, with this man, this has an Ahab spirit. I'm calling him Ahab because he has an Ahab spirit now. He gets together with a woman who has the Jezebel spirit, and they do sorcery. They do witchcraft. They get together. They might even have a relationship with that woman or get her caught in sin so they can take things from her, and they lay it on altars and they steal things. They go back and steal things. They're swapping her traits and characteristics. And this is what I want to say, because it's very dangerous. As you know what God did to Ahab in the Bible, he destroyed his entire household. He murdered and he had his son slain. He destroyed him. God is not playing. So when a woman is not married, when a woman is unmarried and she's waiting for her spouse, okay, because see, God already told me that men were doing this to me. There are men doing it to many of his daughters, and they don't even know about it. When a woman is not married, first of all, when she's waiting for her mate, all the characteristics God has placed inside of her is for her future mate, her potential mate. But until she gets married, until God releases her to a spouse, or even if he doesn't ever release her to a spouse, she is married to God. A single woman is married to God first, okay? We are his bride. So when you steal something from this woman, because our characteristics are everything that's inside of us, when God molds us and transforms us, okay, these gifts, characteristics, traits, everything about that person that makes up their package, their outer beauty, their physical features, their virtues on the inside, their hearts, their disposition, their character, their personality, all of these things, all of the talents and gifts that they have, that is for God's glory. That's for their husband's glory. And even if they were supposed to marry another man in the future, you are stealing from you're stealing from God first of all, and you're stealing from someone else's, some other man who's supposed to marry her. You're stealing from another man. So it's just like this, just like men, they have prize possessions. Sorry. There are men who, you love your vehicles. A lot of men love their vehicles, okay? Men love their vehicles. They love their cars, okay? So I'm going to talk about this. Imagine if you had a vehicle and another man had an addition to same. They had a model of vehicle, could be similar. But this man, you see, you took extra care with your vehicle. You bought all the enhancements. You got tinted windows. You added the nice rims on your car. And you had all the interior custom designed, and you put a lot into this, okay? You didn't just have the regular model just sitting here. You put a lot into this. And so let's say someone came and stole the rims off your vehicle, or they stole all of your interior that you paid a lot for to enhance. You had certain custom design interior. Would that be okay? See, when you're taking things out of a person, you're taking their virtues and their gifts that are meant for God, You're stealing. It's still the same. It's still, you're stealing now. Things that do not belong to you. It was meant for another man. You're stealing when you're stealing things out of a woman because you don't like the type of woman that you're with, even though you chose that woman because of the characteristics that you still have in yourself that you have not gotten healing and deliverance from. You chose the specific type of woman. Instead of going to God and praying and submitting to God yourself, you're calling your sins and your lust, and you don't want to submit to God and get control of your household. You're stuck with a woman who will not change because, see, you're contributing to it because the way you behave. And if you were on one accord with God, you could pray for your entire family and pray for that person to turn around instead of seeking after and lusting after someone you don't really want to be in a relationship with, but you just want to take their gifts. It's like the person who wants to take the rims off another man's vehicle. If a person took rims off your vehicle after you put money and time and effort into your car, and they took the rims, you found somebody had took rims off your vehicle and took the custom design interior and they put it inside their car, how would you feel? You wouldn't like that, would you? So that's what God is saying. Is it fair to the woman? See, this woman is single. Just as myself, I'm single. The Lord already told me, like I said, a lot of men who have been stealing from me to take back to their women that they're in relationships with, whether it be their girlfriends, their wives, their baby mamas, they have been taking things out of me, using sorcery and witchcraft now, putting me on altars and stealing characteristics and traits about me that they want, okay, that they desire, they're made to have. And so I'm sitting here, I don't have a husband. I'm single. And when I need a ride, I'm sitting here walking around, okay? I walk when I don't have money. I had to, it was just a few weeks ago when I didn't have nothing but $5 and I had to walk, okay? I had to walk nearly 3 miles to go to the store just to get a few things from a dollar store so me and my kids can have something to eat. Is that fair to me when I don't have a mate? I don't have a spouse at home taking care of me, but you're taking gifts and characteristics out of me so you can take it back to another woman who you're taking care of, who you're lying in the bed every night making love to, who you're buying gifts for. You have her driving around in a vehicle. You're paying for her to have a car. You're probably putting gas in her car. You're probably taking her out on dinner, taking her on vacations, buying her money, feeding her, giving her clothes. And I'm sitting here alone with no money. No one to take care of me, taking care of myself by my own. But I'm supposed to be married to God. But you're taking characteristics and gifts out of me. But there's no one. You're taking what you want out of me. You're having your cake and eating it too. You have your wife at home. You have your spouse, whoever it is that at home. And you're taking care of them. You're in the household with them. Okay, but you're stealing out of me. I'm living as a single woman, but you're taking things from me to take it back to your woman. And see, this is what God's saying. This was unfair. People are stealing out of his servants. You're stealing out of his servants. And you continue to do it. He's already warned you about it. You know what you're doing, okay? You know what you're doing, and you're still continuing to do it, and you think that God doesn't know. See, God knows what's going on. God knows. He knows. He always knows. You think that God doesn't know? You think God does not know? Sorry. But the light's kind of bright. It's bright in my eyes. So hopefully you can see me. But God knows, okay? Okay. God knows exactly what you're doing. And so this is a warning to certain people. You know who you are. If you continue to keep stealing from God's servants, if you keep taking things, because this is theft, and God takes it seriously, especially when you're taking from something you did not wife that person. It says it's like it says if you buy something you don't want it, you're supposed to take the wife. It's like in the Bible when they would take a woman, they would take things out of her. They were required to marry her. So if you're taking gifts and virtues out of a woman, and you're taking it and you're not wifing that woman, you're stealing. It's illegal. You're not supposed to have access to that stuff. That's not your wife. If you're not exchanged vows with this woman and she is not your wife, you have not come to her and married her, you have no right taking the things that God has placed inside her for her mate or for himself, for his glory, and decide that you're going to just take that and give it to someone else because you are stuck in a relationship with someone because you did not submit to God. You're in that relationship because that's what you chose, okay? But you have no right to steal from another human being and take things out of them. And like I said, they're Jezebel and Ahab gang-ups. I already talked about the video in my gang-up videos. If you didn't read it already, they're Jezebel and Ahab gang-ups that have been deceptively and cleverly and wickedly stealing things from God's kingdom, stealing things from his people. They're taking things. Jezebel wants things, okay? And Ahab wants it. See, Ahab is Jezebel's master. Ahab tells Jezebel what to do. He gets his way. But Jezebel is more cunning. See, Jezebel is the one who will take force and control. See, Ahab wants things, but Ahab's afraid to go out and get it. Or Ahab doesn't have the ambition to get what it is that he wants. So he hides behind Jezebel and uses her to go out and get whatever he wants. So there have been Ahab and Jezebel gang-ups stealing things from God's people, especially from his virtuous women, his daughters. And God does not like it. He's letting you know now, if you do not stop this, he's going to take what you love from you. Just like he destroyed Ahab's sons. You think he wouldn't go after your children, your sons, your daughters? It's a very dangerous thing to steal from God. You might not think that, but these people, when you're stealing things out of God's people who he created, you are stealing from God directly, because God has placed everything inside his people. He placed his talent inside me. He placed all my gifts and virtues inside me. He placed all my physical features inside of me. And you come and think you're going to take it and steal it and take it and give it to somebody else. And that was meant for whoever chose to marry me, so I can express that and share that with them, with my spouse. That was meant for me to give glory to God. That was meant for this other woman to give glory to God, or to give it to her mate. But you let these women sit here. They're sitting here. We sit here single. We sit here with nothing. But you think it's okay to steal from us? And you think God's going to keep allowing this injustice to happen? Just like the person who put up the fancy designs, and if you bought your car and you put all these designs into your car, or all these designs and additions to your home, would you want somebody to come and steal that from you? See, people put more value and worth on material, tangible things, but you think you just do whatever you want to a human being that God created. See, these tangible things can be replaced, but a life can't. We only get one life. When you destroy God's soul, that soul is gone. When you destroy God's creation, that's one person. That person does not be replicated. That person cannot be duplicated and start life all over. You can always go out and get a new car or get more rims. But people put more precedence and more importance on material stuff than you do on a human being's life. And this is where God's going to come in. This is why he says, well, you will reap what you sow. If you didn't care about someone else's life, you take their life, then you lose your life. It's like God's going to go after your life now, because you're taking a life away from another human being. When you're stealing things out of that person that were virtues for that person to use and to express the way God has meant for them to do, for their purpose, for that God has created them for, you're now destroying that person's life. You're murdering that person. And so this is what God's going to do. He's coming down on Ahab. He's not going to keep allowing Ahab to do what he wants to do. He's not going to keep allowing Jezebel and Ahab to gang up together, conspire together, and keep coming up against his servants, especially his anointed prophets. He says he's going to smite the houses of Ahab. He's going to avenge his servants and prophets of the hand of Jezebel. He's going to avenge their blood at the hand of Jezebel.